Ladies and gentlemen, if you want your Blackstone Griddle to go from looking like this right here to this right here, stick around. I'm going to show you how I did it on my stove outside. So first we got to get this thing cleaned up really good. I put some Dawn dish soap on there, sprayed it down, and then scrubbed it down with a scoring pad so that way I can get any residue or any buildup that's on there from manufacturing. Once it's completely dried off, I'll light on my burners. As you can see right here, I got them all heated up. Next, I'm going to take this damp towel that I have in my hand, and I'm going to give it a steam cleaning. Just one final good cleaning before I start layering my seasoning over the top of this thing. Just like this. As this thing completely dries out, I then start checking the temperature with my thermal gun here. I want it to get around 300 degrees. That's when I go ahead and turn my fires off, because the first layer I'm throwing down is some Crisco, which is a vegetable shortening. So I flip this thing over because I'm going to season the entire griddle. I want the bottom side and top. Although I'm only putting a couple layers on the bottom. I'm going to start with the Crisco here, and I'm going to go ahead and try and smooth this out really good. It got to be a little challenging, so I took my time with this, and then ultimately this is what it ended up looking like. Just a thin layer of Crisco on the bottom. I then turned it over and then got the top side covered with a layer of Crisco. Just smoothing it out here, getting it really smooth, wiping all the corners and crevices of this thing. I know your OCD is going to kick in. You're going to be like, why did he miss a spot right there? And then start wiping the side. I really have no clue why I did this. I assume my ADD kicked in and I just went with it. Nonetheless, I did go back over that spot, so hopefully you all feel better about it. So look, I got to tell you, make sure you wipe a thin layer, all right? Wipe it down really good. Get every spot. So at this point, I'm lighting my fires back up to a high heat. Each burner acts differently, so I'm going to have to really monitor the temperature of the griddle. I use my thermal gun doing this. I kind of want to make sure nothing really surpasses like a 650 degree range. Right here, I have on some high heat resistant gloves. Those are very important because this thing gets hot. But as you can see, what's really cool about doing it this way is I can move the griddle in any position I want, and I can evenly heat every crevice of this griddle. Some of the darkness is starting to come in certain areas, and I'm monitoring the heat of those areas. But from there, I'm able to move them off of the areas so that I can get other areas heated up. So that way the darkness comes in evenly on the griddle. It is so cool doing it this way, man. You know, some people say you got to earn your corners. Well, look, right here, you could just burn the corner, and you'll get that thing dark. I cannot stress enough to you guys though, all right? I am doing this outdoors. I have a stove outside so that way all the smoke can easily flow outside and not in my house. But look, this is the first layer of seasoning. Look how good this looks. The entire griddle is heating up evenly. So at this point, it's still really hot. I got this first layer polymerized. I'm going to turn my fires off. I want it to cool back down to like a 300 degree range. Once I see that it's doing that, then I'm going to go with my second layer. But instead of keep using Crisco, I'm going with a grapeseed oil. It's got a higher smoke point and not as much fat content. So I'm going to polymerize over the Crisco with the grapeseed oil. And I'm going to do another thin layer, just like I did earlier. I'm going to wipe it down really good. I also wipe down a thin layer on the backside. I didn't show you here, but it's the only other layer I do on the backside. Everything else is about the cooking side of this griddle. So at this point, I get my heat back up because I want to get this thing smoked off again, probably like a 450 to 600 range. Keep it around there. As you can see, it's starting to smoke off. It's looking really good. Coming along. So I had started seasoning this thing kind of late, so it was getting dark outside. I decided to start it up again in the morning. So here we are next day. Burners are lit, getting this thing warmed up. First two layers polymerized beautifully. I make sure that I'm at about a 300 degree range before I add this grapeseed oil. Once again, I wipe it down really smooth. I don't want to bore you guys to death with the wiping. You get the drill. Once the layer is smoothed out, I raise the heat and smoke it off just like before. And then when it has polymerized, I lower the heat back to 300. I'm adding my third layer of grapeseed oil here, and I'm smoothing it out just like I do before. But I did make sure I lowered that heat before I add it. It's very important to do that. Then you raise the heat back up and smoke it off again. So once the third layer of grapeseed oil has polymerized, I then lower the temperature of the griddle here so that I can get it down to like a 300 degree range. I'm now adding avocado oil. to polymerize over the grapeseed oil. The avocado oil has a little bit higher fat content, and it's got a higher smoke point as well. So it's going to be a great layer of seasoning for what we want to do on this griddle. So I'm following the same procedure here, guys. I wiped it down really smooth, thin layer, and then I raised the temperature of my stove to smoke off this avocado oil. So I want you guys to know I do follow the same procedure the whole way through. I move the griddle around in different areas of the stove so that I can smoke off the entire thing evenly. And it is coming along really good. At this point, I add another layer of avocado oil. And so just to let you guys know, I know I'm wiping it down on the top here, but I do go along the inside and outer edges of the griddle. And I just make sure I wipe it down really smooth. You don't want to kick up oil anywheres. See, here I am going along the sides. I do come along the outside too. I don't have it on video, but it's there. And then once again, I smoke it off just like I did before. Look how dark this thing is getting, man. It looks so good. Outstanding. So once I smoke off this final layer right here, I go ahead and add one more layer of avocado oil. And I know some of you might think this is overkill, but for me personally, I think this is above and beyond. I'm telling you, you feel a different surface of this thing than you would only doing 2 to 3 layers. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the final layer of seasoning, lucky number 7. And this thing looks outstanding. I haven't even cooked on it yet. Look how pretty this is. The entire thing is just like black cast iron or something. It looks so good. And as far as the end result, well, this is the entire griddle. I wind up going to put the metal back on the stand. And this is the Blackstone culinary model. But as you can see, look how pretty that is. I mean, that is just beautiful polymerization. I challenge you to find a better seasoned griddle, all the way around seasoned griddle before it's first cooked, anywhere on YouTube, Facebook, what have you. Well, that is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. If you have access to an outdoor gas stove and you've got a new griddle, season it this way. You'll love it.